Welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. One of our hosts, Will the Cowboy, is out sick, so we have a very special guest today, our editor Hailey. She is jumping in to fill in for our cowboy. So, yeah, Hailey, how are you doing today?
Good. Always good to be on the show, I guess. Not good that it hasn't been under good circumstances, but
One day we got to do an episode where we get you on, not because one of us is sick, but because we just actually want you on there. So, if there's a conspiracy or cryptid or something you like, just let us know, and we'll do an episode, and we'll have three people for that episode. Yeah, but today we are talking about the Tunguska event. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hailey, do you know if you're
it,
probably just as good as mine.
yeah.
Yeah, but um, yeah, so we'll just get into when it happened, what exactly it was, the theories, and then I have a ChatGPT story with not Will, but me and Haley because he's sick. So yeah, hopefully that goes well. And yeah, any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns before we dive in?
Nope, I'm excited to hear about this.
Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the Tunguska asteroid impact event happened about, I want to say, let's see, okay, it's not 2025 anymore, it's 2026. So it's 118 years ago. It happened in 1908, and an asteroid plunged into Earth's atmosphere and exploded in the skies over Siberia.
Hmm.
Local eyewitnesses said that it exploded in a sparsely populated area and reported seeing a fireball and hearing a large explosion. Hello, Cat.
This is Ruth Ann. She says hi. Okay, back to the story.
Back to the story. Hey, if any of you guys watch any of Mike Winger's videos, he has a cat cam, and when this topic is getting too serious, he goes over to the cat cam really quickly to bring things good. So we get our own cat cam today. There we
Yeah.
go. Okay. Yeah, not too much tragedy today. I know some of our episodes can be tragic, but not so much this one. So this fireball comes, makes a huge explosion. People reported massive forest fires, trees blown over for miles, and because the asteroid hit a relatively remote site, the event didn't really get a lot of attention, even in Tsarist Russia, which like to keep track of everything and make sure no attacks or anything was going on in this land. We're not quite in Cold War area yet. The Russian Revolution has yet to happen, but again, Russia's being ruled by czars, and they like to keep tabs on things. So in a massive asteroid coming to Earth, exploding, causing massive forest fires. Even if not many people are around, you still think this would be something they'd check out, but no, it was not so.
Hmm.
So, nope. So anyway, yeah, the first scientific expedition to that area didn't happen until 19 years later in 1927. But hey, there's still ample evidence of the asteroid's explosion there. So they found evidence from the shockwave. They found evidence of the heat blast, and they also found evidence of other asteroids that had hit in times past. So yeah, most of these smaller asteroids broke up and exploded before they even reached Earth, causing really little to no damage. But for the few that did hit Earth, there was wreckage of the asteroids that had hit Earth. So NASA at some point started to investigate too. They established a planetary defense coordination office and tested technology kind of to look into some of these things as well. Um, but yeah, getting to the czars, it's not that they were completely unaware of the event. They just didn't really look into it the way you thought. But on on June 30th, 1908, at 7:15 a.m. Again, that's a few reindeer herders of the local Evenki people saw the event. None of them were closer than 20 miles away. So again, wherever the asteroid hit, nobody died, nobody got killed. People could see it from far away. 20 miles away is not any kind of low thing. But yeah, the fireball left a smoking trail. Uh, the flash was described as brighter than the sun. So when you think of a really, really bright day, the flash apparently was even bigger than that. So that's what reindeer herders were seeing. And again, other witnesses said that they saw a large column of smoke rising into the atmosphere. The asteroid, later on through evidence, was found to have been about an estimated 130 feet in diameter, with an angle of about 30 degrees based on the trail it left in the sky. And it exploded allegedly at about 6 miles above, which is very weird, right? When you have small asteroids coming into the Earth, again, the ozone layer and things like that burn it up. But if you have this giant asteroid that's 130 feet in diameter, you're expecting it to actually hit the Earth, not burn up in the sky. And yet, that's what the scientists concluded. They're like, yeah, this thing, it burned up in the sky. And the reason we talk about the Tunguska event is no crater was ever found.
Oh.
If a giant asteroid comes to Earth, causes forest fires, makes a shockwave, you would expect there to be a crater. But the reason this is a mystery is no crater was ever found. So the theory is that it burned up in the sky, but naturally, like there's some questions. It's just like, well, wait, if it burned up in the sky, then where, how could something that big actually burn up? So, according to NASA.com, let's see. The Soviet Academy of Scientists had Leonid A. Kulik go on an expedition to the site in 1921. But again, they didn't really check out the area until 1927. And even though 19 years had passed, Kuliak was able to do the things. He described a butterfly-shaped area of destruction, 830 square miles, with an estimated 80 million trees knocked over.
Whoa.
So again, it's just like this giant asteroid comes to Earth, takes out 80 million trees, leaves destruction 830 square miles, and you're telling me it was burned up in the sky? It just seems odd. Seems really, really odd. Kuliak, again, he could not find any physical evidence of the asteroid. Again, the theory is that it exploded in midair, but later expeditions did find microparticles indicating an extraterrestrial origin. Not aliens. I know if Will was here, he would get really excited about that, but like the asteroid is not from Earth, right? It's not like Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rocks from space, which is why we know it was an alien. So the prevailing theory today is most scientists believe it was an asteroid that rained destruction on Siberia that June day. In 2016, the United Nations proclaimed June 30th as International Asteroid Day to raise awareness about asteroids and efforts at planetary defense. So we do have technology now to kind of deal with asteroids as they come in. At least small ones. People sometimes joke about a massive asteroid that's going to take down Earth one day. Do we have the capabilities to knock out that asteroid if it ever comes? Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, asteroids actually do hit Earth pretty frequently. Again, vast majority of them burn up before they even hit the ground. But let's see. Yeah, according to the NASA asteroid facts page, Earth is constantly hit by space debris, from dust daily to significant impacts every few hundred to millions of years, depending on the asteroid size. Again, small ones burn up, but large civilization-threatening ones are very rare. Though it is said to occur about every 100 million years. So if you're a theistic evolutionist, then apparently this has happened a few times. If you're a young Earth creationist, and I know this isn't a theology podcast, but it's just like, well, maybe it's never happened, maybe it never once. But yeah, so they do say that every year, at least one car-sized asteroid comes into Earth, but even a car-sized asteroid burns up before it even hits the ground. So, our not daily, but annual car-sized asteroid, no worries about that one. Not big enough to do every damage. About every 200 to 300 years, though, we do get a 50-meter asteroid. And that one does tend to cause local devastation. So when that 50-meter asteroid hits a town or a village, usually kills a few people, might burn up some crops, devastate the local population. So, that one's knocking out at least a small town. About every 1,000 years, we have a 100-meter sized asteroid, which is said to be a city killer, right? So if that thing hit LA or New York or Tokyo or wherever else in the world, that city's gone, right? that city is no longer there. So, and this asteroid, again, remember, 100-meter asteroids are a city killer.
Yeah.
This asteroid was 130 meters, so it's bigger than the city killer. We are very grateful that it hit a area where basically nobody was. Again, 830 miles of destruction and nobody died. So, that's great. But it still is weird that people are saying it, blew up in the sky before it hit the ground, because consistent with the other asteroids of that size that actually did hit Earth, they actually hit Earth. They did cause like massive destruction. So anyway, I'll get into the theories in just a second. But do you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns so far?
I guess my big thought is composition of the asteroid, like just the materials it's made out of. I guess like that might be one of the theories or something, maybe. Is like depending on what it was made out of, maybe it could have burned up, or maybe it dispersed in a way that we weren't looking for. But that's really the only place that my mind goes, like, because I believe this. I have no reason to not believe this happened. And that's crazy that all that like devastation happened and there's like no crater or anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's and theoretically, something blows up in the sky, it could cause damage. So like the forest fires, the trees, like okay, I was like, okay, maybe maybe something happens, but yeah, so. Asteroids, yeah, that's true. Depending on what it's made of, maybe it is more likely to burn up. Usually, asteroids are made of rocky, metallic, or carbon-rich space rocks. So most of them usually are made of some kind of rock or metal. A lot of them do have ice on them, but again, the ice is going to melt pretty quickly once you're entering into the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was mostly ice, then yeah, presumably it probably would get destroyed before it even hits the Earth. Although if it is mostly rock or metal, then maybe not, right? But yeah, that is a good question. I think that probably answers it for sure. So okay, I'll get into some of the theories, and then I think we'll end off with the ChatGPT story. But yeah, the mainstream theory, which we've kind of already talked about, is the asteroid airburst theory. So it said that a stony asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere at high speed, exploded in midair due to pressure and heat before reaching the ground. And theory pretty much fits. I mean, it would explain the lack of a crater. It matches the butterfly tree fall pattern that would be consistent with an explosion of that type. And it's comparable to a 2013 asteroid airburst that happened in Russia Now, the 2013 Russia asteroid was a lot smaller, but the type of pattern it laid out. So, uh, now here's a problem for the theory. If it did blast in midair, you actually would expect to see more pieces of it found than what was actually found. And yet, when Kuliak went and did his investigation, granted it was 19 years later, but when he did it, there's very little recordable debris. The best he could find was microparticles, but not big chunks of the asteroid that you would expect to find. And some eyewitnesses did report unusual flight paths and light phenomena that would not be consistent with the way asteroids look when they're exploding in midair. Uh, so, like the brightness of it, right? The reindeer herders, if we believe them, if they weren't exaggerating, being brighter than the sun would not be consistent with how that asteroid blew up. Also, kind of the way it fell down, asteroids tend to fall down more in a straight path. Some people said it was kind of flying down in a zigzag pattern,
Hmm.
uh, which is not unusual for like a small one, but for a giant one, that would be very, very weird. So, this is a strong theory, but it's not super airtight, which is why other theories exist. Full disclaimer, it's the one I believe. If there's a pretty good explanation for uh, an event, then I tend to go with, the best possible explanation. The best possible explanation is not always the right one, but most of the time it usually is right. Um, do you know what that philosophical term is? I think it's called Occam's razor or something
I was
like.
thinking that isn't that like the most obvious is usually the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly what it is. Usually, what's the most obvious is the is usually the answer because some of these theories do get a little bit more fantastical, um, but yeah. Okay, so let's go into some of the other theories. So one of the theories is that the asteroid broke up into more asteroids, and then those smaller ones broke apart, which is why you don't really find any asteroid debris because when it broke up into smaller asteroids, all those other asteroids also burned up, not leaving anything. The problem with that theory is, well, the smaller asteroids are burning up like that. They're not going to create this big flash. So that's a much weaker theory. It does explain why there's not debris around, but it doesn't really explain the lighting events. So that one, a bit weaker. The other one is the meteoroid swarm theory. So that one says that these were all separate asteroids that all came down at the same time and burned at the same time. If that theory is true, nothing like that has ever happened, ever, at least not in that stage, right? It is possible for like several asteroids to fall at the same time, but to create the amount of damage and the amount of light that happened, you need like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of asteroids all following and exploding right around the same time. And it would explain the lack of debris. It would explain the light, but just a chance of that happening is just so small that it almost borders on impossibility. So yeah, again, that's still also a weaker theory. So those are basically all of the natural theories. We'll get into some of the supernatural theories, right? Okay, so one of the theories is called the black hole theory, and that one states that a microscopic black hole was passing through the Earth.
Hmm.
How a microscopic black hole exists, how it could pass through Earth without causing more of that stuff happening, I don't know. Actually, let me look up if that even is a thing, if microscopic black holes are a thing. Because I know there's the big ones. But... Okay, there are hypothetical black holes, but none have ever been created in a lab or actually observed. But yeah, the idea of micro black holes was introduced by Stephen Hawking. And yeah, he theorized that they could exist. Uh, but yeah, he said a black hole theoretically could exist at about 10 to the negative 8 degree kilograms, which would be very, 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 very tiny. But yeah, I mean, even something that small could cause a lot of damage. So I don't know. Again, that's a pretty fringe theory, but that one's out there. There's the antimatter theory that an antimatter rock collided with Earth. What is antimatter, you say? Well, antimatter is a form of matter composed of what's called antiparticles, which are like mirror images of ordinary matter particles that have the same exact mass as like your regular particles do, but they have the exact opposite electrical charge, right? And that kind of leads to some pretty funky behavior from them. But antimatter mostly has like protons and electrons. Uh, Antimatter is made from what's called an antiproton. So protons are a positive electrical charge, antiprotons are a negative electrical charge. And yeah, when those two things meet, they tend to cause like very big, massive explosions. So if a rock did have a lot of antimatter on it and entered into Earth's atmosphere and got charged up by protons, then yeah, again, maybe so, right? Maybe that's what happened. Uh, but yeah, antimatter, it does exist out in space, but like it attaching itself to rocks is like very, it's like a fringe theory. We don't actually know if it can actually do that or not.
Mm.
So, okay, last two theories, and then we'll get to ChatGPT. So, if Will was here, he already knows what's coming. But aliens, right?
Yeah.
Aliens, yeah. So, yeah, the idea is that the asteroid was not actually an asteroid; it was a UFO, and that it exploded. So, that would match the reports of the reindeer herders saying that it was flying in a zigzag way, kind of the way like aircraft tends to fall down would match what that's described. How a spaceship explodes, I mean, if it is a UFO and we don't really know anything about an alien civilization and how their aircraft would explode, uh, then yeah, I mean, I guess it could cause that much damage, not leave debris or things like that. Again, I mean, other than people's imaginations, there's just not really a whole lot of evidence to support that theory. So, I know Will here's going to say, well, this is weird and that's weird. He's like, the light's weird, the zigzag patterns are weird. And I'm like, sure, yeah, it's strange. I don't know if it means aliens are the conclusion, though, but there you go.
Is that the last theory?
Nope, we got one more from
Okay.
Nikola Tesla, actually. So, Nikola Tesla had his own theory, and he believed around the time that this explosion happened, Nikola Tesla was working on a wireless energy experiment. And there was an accidental discharge from the experiment that went off. And he didn't think much of it at the time. But then later, when he heard about the Tunguska explosion, he thought, maybe the experiment I was doing is what caused that to actually happen that way. Let me see if I can find my notes on what he said. But yeah, I mean, if he did somehow cause that, that would be. I've been wondering what kind of high level experiments he was doing, but okay, so he was working on a high voltage long distance energy transmission from the Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. He believed that electricity could be transmitted through the Earth itself, and he talked about delivering any energy anywhere on the planet. So he's like, hey, the experiments I'm doing, this will be able to deliver energy anywhere on the planet. He's there in New York. Siberia is on the planet. So yeah, he maybe he could have caused something there. It would explain why there was no crater. It would explain, like, if he was able to transfer energy to Siberia, it would explain the light and things that happened. But the problem for this theory is that modern physics can't explain airbursts very well. And again, during the search, there's just like no exotic energy source is needed for an airburst like that to happen. There's no evidence that Tesla at any time actually was able to project Megatron level energy across the Earth, uh, nor that he had a power source of the scale to actually cause something like that to happen. And although his experiments did have like some impressive coils and power sources, uh, the Tunguska explosion had about 10 to 15 million tons of TNT power. So that's like a continent level threat, right? Like, that's not like a city level threat. So for one of Tesla's machines in New York to cause an event like that on another continent, just not likely at all. So
And you think there would have been some feedback or something that would have hit New York then?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, right, exactly. You would think, like, at least locally something's happening, right? Like, at least the powers are going out or things like that. But yeah, no, we don't see anything like that happening. So yeah, any last questions, comments, or concerns regarding the event?
I was just thinking, now this is more along the lines of like Will's alien things, but my thing is always to go into what if demons?
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't mean I necessarily like full heartedly believe everything is demonic or anything, but you never know. Like, what if a supernatural battle is being waged and like the dimensional curtain got torn and then something, I don't know. But I like thinking of those kinds of fun theories. But I think kind of what you were saying, like the Occam's razor kind of thing, like the most obviously like plausible one is, what did you call it? Like the airburst theory?
Yes.
That one's probably what happened.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it's fun to think of other things.
Yeah, for sure. And again, if there was a crater, this would just kind of be a normal event. But it's the fact that there was no crater that people are like, "Whoa, what's going on?" So okay, all right. With that, we just have our Chat GPT story. So we'll go from there, and that'll be our episode. So okay, Beyond the Campfire, Tunguska, a Beyond the Campfire story. Tunguska, 2:14 a.m. The forest was wrong. Stephen had noticed it immediately, not in a dramatic way, but in the way a man notices a room has been prayed in recently. The trees stood too evenly spaced. The ground dipped and rose with a geometry that felt imposed rather than grown. Hailey zipped her jacket tighter and exhaled fog. So, she said, dry as frost. No crater, no fragments. Millions of trees knocked down like matchsticks. I feel very reassured already. Steven smiled faintly. You sound disappointed. I just like my disasters honest, she replied. If something blows up, it should have the decency to leave some fingerprints. They walked deeper into the blast zone. The moonlight revealed the familiar radial pattern. Trees flattened outward from a center that felt less like a point and more like a pause. At the epicenter, several trunks still stood upright, stripped bare. Stephen stopped. Here, he said softly. Hailey followed his gaze. Of course it's here. The air changed. It wasn't colder. Not exactly. It felt charged. the way a room feels just before a storm or just after a confession. The silence deepened, not absence of sound, but attention. Then a voice spoke. You are late. They both turned. A figure stood among the trees, translucent, faintly luminous, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, his mustache unmistakable. His eyes, sharp and curious, carried no fear of being seen. Haley recovered first. Great, she said. Stephen, you owe me $20. The apparition smiled. You are unafraid. I'm tired, she corrected. Different thing. Stephen stepped forward, slow and respectful. Nikola Tesla. Yes, the ghost said. The name still survives. That pleases me. You're here, Stephen said carefully. I am where my questions linger, Tesla replied, and where others refuse to die. Haley crossed her arms. Okay, let's skip the pleasantries. Did you do this? Tesla's smile faded. Not into guilt, but into thought. I experimented, he said. Boldly, carelessly, some would say. I sought resonance between earth, sky, and energy itself. I believed power could be sent without wires, without borders. Stephen asked quietly, did one of those experiments cause this explosion? Tesla turned toward the forest, toward the flattened trees stretching endlessly outward. I did not intend this, he said. That wasn't a question, Haley replied. Tesla looked at her then, truly looked. Intention, he said, is a comfort humans lean on when confronted with consequence. Stephen felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. So you're not denying it, Haley said. I am not claiming it, Tesla replied. There is a difference. He gestured upward to the black Siberian sky. The universe is not passive. When one tugs at its strings, it sometimes answers louder than expected. Stephen swallowed. Do you believe you are responsible? Tesla's form flickered. I believe, he said slowly, that something is listening. The forest hummed, just barely, like distant wires. Haley muttered, that's not comforting at all. No, Tesla agreed. Comfort was never my discipline. The ghost began to fade, his outline dissolving into moonlight. Mr. Tesla, Stephen said urgently, should we be afraid? Tesla paused, long enough to consider. Fear, he said, is useful only if it leads to humility. And then he was gone. The forest returned to silence. Haley exhaled hard. Will is never allowed to skip field work again. Stephen nodded slowly, staring at the place where the ghost had stood. Some mysteries, he said, aren't meant to be solved, only approached carefully. Haley looked at the fallen trees, the standing ones, the absence where answers should be. Yeah, she said. Next time, let's investigate something normal, like a haunted castle. They turned back toward camp, leaving the forest as they found it, flattened, silent, and listening. There we go. That's the story. So, um, that's all I have. Any last words for the audience?
I got to meet Nikola Tesla and Will did not. So, like, on terms of meeting cool historical figures, because Hitler is not a cool historical figure, and I'm not sure Tesla's that. If we're going off morality, I'm not sure he's that cool either. But Tesla.
For sure. Well, he did. Tesla didn't kill millions of people, so there is that.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, be jealous, Will. Be jealous. All right, campers. That is not campers, s'mores. Thank you for tuning in. That is all we have. If you like our content, go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We are at Beyond Campfire or at Beyond Campfire Podcast, and we hope to see you next time. Have a good one.